I know you have a specific breathing pattern that is associated with a calmer mind. Can you teach it to us?
I love it so much. It's the 15-second breath. So if you're having a panic attack, this is going to fix it in 2 minutes or less. And what researchers discovered is you take twice as long to breathe out as you breathe in. It produces an automatic relaxation response in your body. So the pattern is this, and it's 4 seconds in,
Okay.
hold it for a second and a half, 8 seconds out, hold it for a second and a half.
Will you walk us through it?
So 4 seconds in, hold it, 8 seconds out. Hold it out. And then repeat. And I have an app called Happy Brain, HAPI Brain, and actually has a pacer that does that for you. And all you have to do is when you see the circle get bigger, breathe in. When you see it get smaller, breathe out. And it's so simple. And try to breathe more diaphragmatically or more with your belly. So let the energy of breathing go lower in your body. And if you just practice this on a regular basis, cortisol will go down. And you're just going to get flooded with a feeling of calmness and relaxation. Now you got to practice. You have to create a pathway in your brain of relaxation.
Why does this 15-second breath work?
Because it stimulates, encourages your brain to go into a parasympathetic state. So there's a difference between stress, what scientists call sympathetic state, has nothing to do with sympathy. It's a bad word. But a sympathetic state is where I was on the beach at Corona del Mar walking my dog, and I saw 2 pit bulls running toward me.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, right? So my heart went fast. I mean, it was panic, and ended up turning out okay. But
well, what happened? Now I'm on the edge of my seat. Did you pick up your dog? Did they just jump up?
Oh no, he's a big white shepherd, and I got bit. He ended up in the ocean. Yeah, it was sort of a disaster. I still get triggered sometimes, which we should talk about a little bit, because in my elite brain training program, it is critical to eliminate trauma, or at least to learn how to dissipate trauma, because I love walking on that beach so much. So I actually did a session of EMDR. I don't know if you and I talked about EMDR.
Yep.
It's specific psychological treatment for trauma. It's actually really cool. It is, I have my patients write down 10 of their worst traumas. And then through a specific protocol, I'll have their eyes go back and forth while they bring it up, and it tends to help dissipate it. It's very powerful. Or when I go on that beach now, I'll often find myself doing this.
And what you're doing is rubbing your hands back and forth.
Right. And it's bilateral hemisphere stimulation in my brain, right? I feel it on one side, then the other side. And that just takes the anxiety that I might associate to that beach and washes it away, which can be so helpful. So many people, they drink to manage their anxiety from past trauma. They're using marijuana, now more magic mushrooms. And I'm like, no. There are way better ways to do that are not potentially toxic for your brain.
Wow. Well, we're going to have to come back and do a whole nother episode on that for sure. How do you calm a very busy brain?
So the first simple thing to do is the diaphragmatic breathing, the breathing pattern that we just talked about. The second thing that we haven't talked about, but so important, is to direct your thoughts. I was 28 years old before I learned I didn't have to believe every stupid thing I thought. And I'm in class when I was a psychiatric resident at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center. And I heard my professor say that. And I'm like, no way. Because my mind would fairly torture me. You know, I'm one of 7 children. I was pretty much irrelevant. I have, 5 sisters. There's a lot of chaos in my family. And my mind would torture me. And if you start writing down your negative thoughts and just ask yourself whether or not they're true. And there's a whole process I teach my patients. It's just so helpful that I need to be the director of my mind rather than my ancestors directed, or the voices of my parents directed, or the news, or the gossip at work. I need to be the director. And since I want to be happy, connected, purposeful, I often go, well, does this thought fit me being happy, connected, and purposeful? And Mel, just because you have a thought has nothing to do with whether or not it's true or whether or not it's helpful. Or, everybody has crazy thoughts. Jerry Seinfeld once said the brain is a sneaky organ. All of us have weird, crazy, stupid, sexual, violent thoughts that nobody should ever hear. And just because you have a thought, it doesn't say one thing about you. It's just sort of, like the weather. It's not the thoughts you have that make you suffer. It's the thoughts you attach to that make you suffer. And when you really understand this, so we talked about the physical functioning of your brain. Well, now we're talking about programming.
Yeah, let's stop real quick because I want to ask you a question. Because I want you to talk to the person that has never considered that they could direct their thoughts, or that the things that they think aren't necessarily true. If there's a person hearing this, just like you were 28 years old, sitting in a class when it first entered your mind, other than taking out a notebook and just start to write down the things that are popping in your mind, is there some other way to help someone kick the door open? Because this is a revolutionary and life-changing concept when somebody first entertains the notion, Dr. Hyman, that you can direct what you're thinking about and you can dismiss some of the crap that you torture yourself with as untrue. How do you begin this mental training and reprogramming?
So I don't have any tattoos, but if I got one of the first tattoos I would get is it true? It's just start carrying that question around in your head. And so when you get a thought, my wife never listens to me. I've had that thought. If you have that question, then you don't automatically have to attach to it. You can talk back to it. I don't know if you were good at talking back to your parents when you were a teenager, but I was excellent. And no one had ever taught me to talk back to myself. And so we don't have to believe the nonsense that's going on in our head. Just sort of begin to think about it like the weather, and then go, does this thought serve me? Does it help me? Is it even true? And it's so often the lies we tell ourselves that keep us overweight, depressed, and feeble-minded. And it's a revolution, I think, all second graders. I actually have a children's book called Captain Snout and the Superpower Questions, where I teach kids not to believe every stupid thing they think. I call them ants, automatic negative thoughts. So you need a little anteater patrolling the streets of your mind.
I want to kind of come back to some tips and some tools that people can use to start boosting brain health. So what are the 5 best foods that you can eat for brain health?
So I have them almost every day. Salmon, especially wild salmon for the omega-3 fatty acids. Berries, but they have to be organic. That's very important. So I'm a huge fan of blueberries. I often call them brain berries, but it's critical that they're organic. So people take blueberry extract. Actually, it's been shown to improve memory.
Okay.
Nuts and seeds. People who eat nuts and seeds on a regular basis have a lower incidence of depression and dementia. Leafy greens for the fiber and the magnesium, but my favorite one is raw cacao, or the main ingredient in chocolate. I don't say chocolate because chocolate's filled with sugar and dairy and a lot of things that are really bad for you. But as a bonus, I want you to try this. I make brain healthy hot chocolate virtually every day.
How do you make it?
And so I get raw cacao. So for each serving, say the serving's like 12 ounces, a heaping teaspoon of raw cacao, unsweetened organic almond milk. And you could do it with other nut milks, but I like almond milk. And there's a company called Sweet Leaf that makes liquid chocolate stevia. And so I heat up the milk, I mix in the raw cacao, I put a couple of dropperfuls of chocolate stevia and put it in a blender. It tastes amazing. And it's part of the ritual I have for happiness in my life, and this is a very important point. I only eat things I love that love me back. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been in a bad relationship. I have. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm like married to my best friend, and I'm damn sure not doing it with food. I am not going to be in, because people go, oh, I love Rocky Road ice cream. Well, it beats you up. Or I love beer. Well, it shrinks your brain. And I'm like, no. Do I love it? Like I love my brain healthy hot chocolate, and it loves me back. So whatever you eat or whatever you do, I mean, we're in a relationship with what we eat and what we do. And is it a mutually positive relationship, or is it destructive?
See, I love that there was an ambulance driving by in the background as my and our brain doctor were telling us to make hot chocolate. That was just a beautiful thing. I think that was the universe telling us all, we need to have our brain healthy cacao with the stevia chocolate sweetener. I'm actually going to make one when we are done with this. What can we do to improve our memory, Dr. Hyman?
Well, improve your brain. It's like the most important thing. It's 50%. I mean, think about this, Mel. 50% of people 85 and older will be diagnosed with dementia. Like those are odds I am not okay with. And if you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. And I know we don't have time to go in it, but the mnemonic I have is bright mind. So for example, maybe the most important thing, B, is for blood flow. Whatever you can do to increase blood flow to your brain, you're going to be happier, your memory is going to be better, and you're going to be more sexual. Because whatever is good for your brain, good for your heart, is good for your genitals.
So is that the brisk walking?
So you want to avoid things that steal blood flow, caffeine, nicotine, being sedentary, having any form of heart disease. And then you want to do things that enhance blood flow. So walking, raw cacao, beets, the supplement ginkgo. These things all increase blood flow. Cinnamon, oregano.
Wow. Okay. I want to hear the R though. Bright mind. I know that there's 11, but give me 2 or 3 of them.
The R is retirement and aging. When you stop learning, your brain starts dying. So constantly engage in new learning. The I is inflammation. But the one maybe to talk about more is the T. It's toxins. And we live in a toxic society, right? Here I am in Florida. I just talked about all the fish off the coast in Florida. On average, they have 7 pharmaceuticals in their tissues. But just the products you put on your body, I have all of my patients download the app Think Dirty. It allows you to scan all of your personal products, and it'll tell you on a scale of 1 to 10 how quickly they're killing you.
Oh my God.
We saw this year that the FDA took off a number of sunscreens off the market because they were associated with cancer. How horrifying is that, right? You're thinking you're protecting yourself from cancer. The toxic products are giving you cancer. So Think Dirty, but also we have to stop thinking of alcohol as a health food. It's not, it's toxic to your brain. Or marijuana is innocuous. It's not, it damages your brain. And, you know, it's these little lies in our society that is really promoting the disease we are just flooded with.
So you've been a psychiatrist for 40 years. What are 5 things you'd never do because it's bad for your mental health and your brain health?
Well, I never believe every stupid thing I think. And I think that's really important to know, you know, I'm going to get these crazy, stupid, awful thoughts, and I know how to manage and dismiss them. I would never say everything I think. Some people come to me and say, oh, Dr. Hyman, I'm brutally honest. And I'm like, well, that's usually not helpful. Relationships require not. I would never purposefully stay up late and screw up my sleep. I would never eat everything I want. And I would never take medicine just based on symptom clusters. Like, you know, I'm depressed, so take an antidepressant. So I think that's all insane. I always want to look at the brain and then target whatever treatment I need to how somebody's brain's functioning.
Yeah, the one thing I forgot to ask you, because, you know, right now, as you and I are talking, we've just turned the clocks back. But this time of year, when it gets darker earlier and it's colder, I notice like my mood drops and I feel like sad. What do you do, whether it's because of the time of year or because of chronic stress? You feel this sort of languishing or heaviness set in. What are 3 things that you would recommend that somebody do to boost their mood?
So morning bright light, I think that can be really helpful. So, you know, a bright light therapy lamp for 20 or 30 minutes in the morning, exercise, don't overdo the caffeine. And it's really important, we haven't talked about this yet, turn off blue light when the sun goes down.
What
So
is blue light?
constantly flooded with blue light. And in the morning, it's fine, but after dark, it's not, because it decreases the production of melatonin. So you get it from your laptop, or you get it from your phone, or you get it from whatever gadgets you might be looking at. And so after dark, either put blue light blockers on your gadgets or just turn them off and go read a book.
Okay, great. And I also didn't ask you this. How do you know if your dopamine levels are low?
If you're tired, if you're unmotivated, if you can't concentrate, and you find yourself more impulsive than is good for you.
Mm. And finally, let's bottom line, because you are the master at elite brain training. If you could leave everyone with just one thing that you would like them to start doing today to create better brain health, what would it be?
It's that mother tiny habit. It's whenever you come to a decision point in your day, just ask yourself, am what I'm doing good for my brain or bad for it? And if you can answer that with information and love, I mean, I'm serious about this, love of yourself, love of your family, love of the reason you're on earth, you're going to start making good decisions for your brain, and then everything in your life will be better.
So I just wanted to check in on you because there's a lot going on right now. I was sitting at my desk yesterday and I got the news that Stephen Twitch Boss had died from suicide. And if you have not seen this news or you don't know who he is, let me just kind of share a little bit about him and why it impacted me. So he was best known, and this is how I knew him, for being one of the executive producers of Ellen DeGeneres' talk show. And he was not only an executive producer, he was on that show every single day, 5 days a week. He was the DJ. He would do all the dance parties with Ellen. He has this huge, amazing megawatt smile. And his energy, he's just one of those people that you didn't need to know him to know that literally positivity, dancing, spreading like kindness. That's what this guy was all about. And you didn't need to know him to know that he was also all about his wife, Allison, and his 3 like gorgeous kids. And during the pandemic, not only was he there with Ellen, but he and his wife, who are both dancers, started doing all of these choreographed, awesome videos that went viral online. And they spread so much joy for people doing these dances and teaching people with their kids all these dance moves. And they just were this positive, amazing force. And so when I heard the news that he died from suicide yesterday at the age of 40, it just rocked me to my core. And I'm still processing it like 18 hours later. And when I woke up this morning, I also saw that I had missed the fact that yesterday was the 10th anniversary of Sandy Hook. And so I just felt this need to grab my coffee and to run up here. I haven't even washed my face yet this morning and talk to you. And I just wanted to share what I'm thinking and feeling, because I think it's really important that in moments like this, where the news feels overwhelming or the world feels overwhelming, and I know the holidays can just bring up a lot of stuff for a lot of us too, I want to check in on you. And I want to check in on myself. And so that's why I decided I'm just going to get on this mic and I'm going to just talk to you. And that's it. That's what we're doing today. So first things first, let's unpack, or I want to share with you what I'm thinking in the wake of learning that somebody that was so light and positive and amazing on the outside, how do you process that kind of news that they died from suicide? And notice the word I'm using. I'm saying died from suicide. And that's because I think about a death from mental health struggles the same way I think about a death from cancer. Like if you have a friend that dies of brain cancer, you say they died from cancer. If you have a friend or a loved one, as every single one of us does, who has died from a struggle with addiction or depression or trauma or toxic stress or any other mental health issue, that mental health challenge deteriorated the physical structure of that person's brain. That's what happened. The same way that brain cancer physically deteriorates the brain until it kills somebody. And so the word choice is really deliberate because it's a recognition of what actually happened. There's a couple other bigger things that I just have to say, and that is that you don't need to know somebody. Like you don't need to know Twitch personally to be affected personally by the news of his death. You don't have to have lived in the Sandy Hook community to be impacted by the news that it was the 10th anniversary yesterday. Because these things that are happening out in the world trigger you to remember experiences of loss in your own life. And so for me personally, I think one of the reasons why I have been so rocked by this news is because, you know, if you look at somebody like Twitch on the outside, this man exuded positivity. You never saw him without a smile on his face. You couldn't watch those dance videos without feeling the ripple of joy. And for me personally, it reminds me of a really dear friend of mine that died from suicide over 10 years ago. And the second that I heard this news about somebody who on the outside looked like they were just doing great, it reminded me of losing somebody that was the same way. And that may be happening to you. And the other thing that this is bringing up for me is that you just have no clue what's going on in somebody else's life. You focus on the beautiful smile that somebody has, or the great job, or the bank account, or the awesome spouse, or the wonderful kids, or the big house. But people don't live at their house. You know where everybody lives? They live inside their heads. And you and I don't have a clue what it's like for somebody else to live with the pain inside their heads. And so, you know, one of the major takeaways here for me is one of Twitch's biggest messages, which is being kind. And the fact that being kind and being positive around other people, you have no clue. In fact, we underestimate the impact that it can have on somebody else's life to just be kind to them. And so that's one takeaway, that you just don't have a clue. So please just don't assume that you know what's going on and assume that everybody is silently battling something. So it's on all of us to be kind to one another. Second thing that I want to say is I need you to be kind to yourself today, because there's a lot swirling around right now. And so if you notice that you're thinking about people that you lost, which I am. I mean, yesterday what was happening for me as I heard the news, and I, of course, immediately thought about his family, is I was transported back to the day that I learned that our dear friend Fred had died from suicide. And it's like I started reliving that day again. As I thought about the pain that Twitch's wife, Allison, and his 3 kids were feeling, I thought about this particular moment on the day that Fred died, where I was with his daughter and we were walking up the front steps to his house. And I knew that when we opened that door, I was going to be present when she learned that her father had died. It is a moment that changed me forever. And so that's also what was happening for me yesterday. And I was thinking about, how much I miss Fred. And I was thinking about how sad and heartbroken I am about all the other people in my life that had struggled with mental health issues and addiction or hopelessness or depression, and how they all died from suicide, and just how much pain there is out there. It can be really overwhelming. If that's happening for you, just be kind to yourself. Like, you may need to sleep in. You may need to go for a walk today. You should probably reach out to a friend and talk to somebody about it. It would be good for you to remember the person and the things that you miss about them. Like remembering somebody that is gone and thinking about the things that you really loved about them. That's a really healthy thing to do on a day like today. But simply being aware that news like this brings up stuff for you that's personal, that's step one. Step two is being kind to yourself. Step three is being proactive about taking care of yourself today and reaching out. And step four is understanding this issue in a larger context. And so now I want to kind of switch gears and address something that's pissing me off. As I see people processing Twitch's death in particular, because this hit me as hard as Robin Williams, as hard as Anthony Bourdain. And I think the reason why it hits people so hard is because you're trying to make sense of somebody who seems like they've got it all together on the outside. And it, in your rational mind, it just makes no sense. And that is where the learning is. See, your mind is rational right now. You're objective. You're not living with the pain the person was living with. So when you look at the situation from your lens, you remove the pain that the person was feeling. And so it makes no sense to your brain because your brain wasn't compromised from the mental health struggle that that person was really battling day in and day out. And so let me go back to the example of brain cancer. If you have a friend that's dying from brain cancer, you see them deteriorate on the outside. You see what's happening. You would never, in a million years, when somebody dies from brain cancer, go, oh, that's so selfish. Why did they choose to do that? What about their family? But they had so many resources. But I see so many people writing this horse shit online, and it's pissing me off because it shows that you don't have a freaking clue what it means to struggle with a mental health issue. You don't have a freaking clue. And it really pisses me off when I see people that write really arrogant, pretentious things like, well, I struggled, I was in a dark thing, and I asked for help. Well, that's great. I'm happy that you didn't get so bad, that your brain wasn't so deteriorated, that you could ask for help. When somebody gets to the point that their brain functioning is so eroded that they cannot cognitively, rationally process the fact that there is a huge difference between ending the pain that you're dealing with and ending your life. When somebody gets to the point where they can't think clearly, it means the physical structure of their brain has deteriorated from the mental health battle. That's what that means. And that smile that people put on their faces the whole way through, that is so hard. Can you imagine to get to the point where you love your family so much that you think the only way to save them is to get rid of yourself? Like, this is just, that's how compromised your brain is. And so when I think about this like brain cancer, that the physical brain functioning is deteriorating to the point where nobody can think rationally, that removes all judgment. And all I have is compassion and sadness. That's it. That is it. And that is all there is to have for the people that you've lost, for the folks that we continue to lose, and for anybody that's listening to this. If this is you and you're in a really dark place right now, I want to speak directly to you right now. because you're meant to hear this right now. You can address the pain that you're feeling in your mind and your body. You can. And there are people standing by right now that are trained, that want to help you. And with support and with small, tiny moves forward every single day, you can make this pain lessen. You can loosen the grip it has on you, and you can feel better. You can also improve the physical structure of your brain. You can improve the way that you think so that your brain starts to support you. You can face this with a little bit of support. You can. And you can do that, and I want you to do that because we want you here. You have a big, beautiful life, and I know that if you believed that you could somehow lessen the pain you're feeling, you would want to live that life. And so please, please, please get support for the pain that you're feeling and hold on to the life that you have, because your life is worth fighting for. And there are people that want to help you. We have resources in the show notes, not only for here in the United States, but also for multiple languages, international resources. And so I just felt the need to talk to you, to check in with you. Be kind to yourself today. Stop assuming that you know what other people are thinking. Remember the people that you've lost and the things that you loved about them. And together, we'll get through this. We will. I promise.
Anxiety,
well, let's talk about depression,
right?
because anxiety is not a disease. ADHD is not a disease.
No, they're just...
Let's talk about depression, though, because that is technically like a disease, right?
Well, anxiety is a disease, and ADD is considered a disease. I mean,
Why?
They're in the disease classification manual. I don't agree. I think here. Let me just back up a little bit. We have like 155,000 diseases in our manual, doctor manual, that we can pick from when we want to diagnose somebody, and most of them are just descriptions of the symptoms that people have, but tell you nothing about the cause.
So is the root cause inflammation? Is that the root cause of all of this?
Many things is inflammation.
What is the root?
Everything.
What are the options when it comes to root cause for you as a functional medical doctor?
Yeah. So basically, at the beginning, we talked about taking out the bad stuff, putting in the good stuff.
Yeah.
And the body's not that complicated. I mean, it's complex. It's very dynamic, but basically, it needs certain things to thrive, and certain things make it not thrive, right? So what are the things that we need to think about getting rid of that the body doesn't like?
Okay.
Bad food.
Yep.
And we've sort of defined that's processed food, sugar, most of the stuff that people are eating. 60% of our diet is ultra processed food, which is deadly. It's stress, and it can be physical or psychological stress. And a lot of, stress is really defined as the perception of a real or imagined threat to your body or your ego. So it could be a tiger chasing you, or you could think your spouse is cheating on you, but it's not true.
Or you could think that your boss is mad at you.
Yeah, like Woody Allen with a gun to his head has one reaction. James Bond has another action, right?
That's an interesting
Same
example.
same gun, different response. So the
Yes.
perception is our mindset, our beliefs, our attitudes. A lot of things you talk about, Mel, are really what drives our stress response.
How does a negative thought cause a physiological problem in your body? A stress response.
I'm going to answer that. Can I finish the
No, you can't. No,
because you have ADD. Because I'm just going to continue with the thing that I wanted to say.
I
and then
clearly
I'll come
need
back
to eat
the-
more vegetables, goddammit.
I'll come back to that. So the other few things that are the things that cause our body to be out of balance, besides bad food and stress, are toxins. So we are living in a sea of environmental toxins, from heavy metals to pesticides.
Okay.
Our gut and microbiome is a huge factor. So an unhealthy gut and bad bugs, and it can be infections, or can mostly come from the gut. And last is things that irritate our immune system, like allergens or sensitivities.
Okay.
Those 5 things.
So say
are
them again. Bad foods.
Bad food, stress, toxins, bad bugs, and
Sensitivity.
allergens.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And those interact with our biology with 7 basic systems that we have that keep us healthy. And if we have those things, they create imbalance. So we have to get rid of those things. Take out the bad stuff. So what are the good stuff? What are the ingredients for health? How does our bodies thrive? We know how to take care of our car. We change the oil. We fill up the air in our tires. We, get the tune-up. We change the spark plugs, whatever. Like most of us have a clue. In our bodies, we have no clue. So what are the things our bodies need? We need the right nutrients and nutrition. And it's a little bit personalized, but I've written a lot about how to find a way of eating that's good for you and that you like. It's culturally relevant. It's affordable. Second is nutrients. We are often deficient in many nutrients, particularly omega-3s, vitamin D, B vitamins, iron, zinc. These are magnesium common nutritional deficiencies that have broad impacts across the body, including our mood. Then we need the right balance of hormones. We need the right amount of light at the right time. So if you're having, blue light at night, you're not going to sleep. If you don't have, blue light in the morning, your brain can't reset for the day.
When you say blue light in the morning, are you talking about bright light outside?
Sunlight.
Okay.
Go outside.
I didn't really realize that sunlight was blue light.
Yeah, well, it's got blue in the blue light spectrum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so at night we just are overstimulated with our computers and our screens, and this screws up. So we need the right kind of light. We need the right type of clean air. We need clean water. We need movement, like exercise. We need resetting, restoration, relaxation, resetting the vagus nerve, sympathetic nervous system needs to be calmed down, right? That's not a passive activity. So you have to actively relax, right? Whether it's breathing or yoga or meditation or whatever, prayer, or journaling, a million ways to do it. Then we need also sleep. And most of us are not getting enough sleep or good quality sleep. So 7-8 hours minimum for most people is essential. And there's a lot of talk we can talk about sleep. And then we need connection, community, love, meaning and purpose. These are all ingredients for health. In my book, I talk about how, for example, if we cured heart disease and cancer from the face of the planet, we'd extend our life by 5 to 7 years.
If we cured loneliness?
If we cured loneliness and develop connection and meaning and purpose, we extend our life by 7 years or more. So wait a minute. Basically, having meaning and purpose and connection in your life is more powerful than curing cancer and heart disease in terms of longevity. So we and I know from my travel to blue zones, that was a big part of the medicine they had, was community is medicine.
Right.
Connection is medicine.
Yeah.
And
And I'm sure you're seeing it as a epidemic of loneliness, especially coming out of the pandemic.
Totally. So those are the ingredients for health that we need to provide, and everybody needs different ones. For example, some people might need more vitamin D, some people might need more sleep, some people need different kind of exercise. So it's really personalized, but those are the basic ingredients. So
it's
that's
sort of personalized, right? Because like just talking to the broad audience that's listening, you've mentioned a number of supplements, and it's the same ones over and over. So for anybody listening that's like, okay, I got it, I have to do something. We've already talked about diet and changing your diet, and even just noticing that if you were to remove the things we've talked about and add in this very simple, clean, healthy, vegetable forward and clean protein diet in 6 to 10 days, you're going to feel like a different person. Just try it.
Try it. And then you can decide what you want to do after that, right?
Yes.
I want to keep eating my donuts. Okay, fine. Then you're going to feel like crap. And if you want to feel like crap, it's your prerogative. Right?
Well, I'll tell you something. I am now on, it's like, I don't know, day 30 something of not drinking. It's life-changing.
Yeah, totally.
It's totally life-changing. And I cannot believe how much clearer I am. I cannot believe how much more present I am. I cannot believe that I don't really miss it. Yep. And I had committed to doing this for almost 3 months, and I don't know how I'll incorporate it back, if ever. Maybe here and there, but like it just was such a profound difference for me that I'm kind of dumbfounded I didn't do this earlier. If you can't afford to go to somebody in functional medicine to get this all tested, how do you figure out what's going on? You have in your new book, Young Forever, you have all of these self-assessments that you can do. Yeah. But do you have to have testing at some point, or is there a way for you to
get testing?
Have an accessible way?
Yeah.
Because a lot of, like, one of the things, I agree with you. I agree with you that our medical approach and the medical system is about treating illness versus keeping you healthy and whole. I agree that we treat symptoms, but we have a hard time getting to the root cause.
I agree.
So I just want to, like, because I know that what's going to happen with this conversation, Dr. Hyman, is that we are going to activate anyone listening to absolutely take the next 10 days of your life and see what happens when you reset your diet and you remove a few things. absolutely add in those simple supplements that cost you less than $1 a day, and you are worth that investment in yourself, and see what happens. Absolutely take the steps to lower your stress and tap into your body's ability to reset, like even just the 5 deep breaths a day that activate and tone the vagus nerve. But if somebody's going, I want to learn more, what is the next right step?
That's a great question. And you know, one of the challenges I've always had with medicine is it's kind of a secret guild, and doctors hold the reins. They can order the tests or they can't. They will give you the results or they won't. They'll help you interpret them or they won't. And so you're at the sort of whim and mercy of whoever you're seeing. And most doctors do a good job and want to help people, but it kind of kept in a guild. So in the book, Young Forever, I do have really extensive questionnaires that allow you to figure out almost 80% of what's going on.
Yep.
And then depending on what you find in those, you can kind of follow up with different kinds of testing. But because of this problem, exactly that you're talking about, I decided to co-found a company with a good friend called Function Health, which allows you, without a doctor's order, to go to any Quest lab in the country, and there's thousands of them, get a blood draw of over 100 biomarkers that normally cost $15,000 for $500.
Wow.
And it comes with a whole interpretive map and framework and dashboard that's filtered through the lens of functional medicine that I wrote that allows people to not have to go see the doctor and still do 80% of. Or
why the hell did I go to your clinic then if I could have just done this, Dr. Hyman? Burying the lead. No, I'm just kidding. I am just kidding, everybody. I do want to say something that I was able to go to the medical center right here in this tiny town of Manchester, Vermont, and have blood drawn for those tests.
Yeah, right.
And so you don't have to go to your primary care. You don't have to go. All of the minute clinics that are popping up are places where you can go if you're going to do those things to order the blood draws.
Well, the thing is, you have to usually get a doctor's order. So the beautiful thing about Function Health, this company that we created, was that you don't need a doctor's order. So you can go to the website, sign up, and they'll network with over 50 different states, doctors in every one, where you can just go and get kind of
the testing done.
Yeah, get the testing done, get your results, and track it over time, and you can see your hormones, your thyroid, your insulin, your like age-related markers, your brain chemistry, so much about what's going on with your body.
You know what's so cool about this? If you can afford to do it, and we'll put the link in the show notes, is it's like getting an X-ray of your insides.
Yeah.
And you've proven to us that you heal from the inside out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I'm so excited about this approach because it empowers people to be the CEO of their own health. And the reality is that, you know, even if you go to the doctor with all these complaints, they're going to be able to, quote, manage your symptoms. I don't want to manage people's symptoms. I want people to get better. I want people to reverse these problems and not need a doctor. And the truth is, most of the things that work are not things you're going to get at a doctor's office, which is drugs and surgery. So sometimes you need them, and I use them. That's not a bad thing. But most of the problems we have don't respond very well to that. And all these things that we talk about, whether it's depression. I mean, antidepressants just suck. They don't work that well. They have all these side effects. And anxiety medications are highly addictive. I mean, they just cover over the symptoms. What if you could actually figure out why you're having the problem and fix it?
Well, I think you told us why. It's inflammation. It's a gut that's out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
It is the stressors in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It is the toxins in your environment. And not understanding that your body has this elegant design that is super intelligent and responsive and can heal itself if you are conscious and intentional about the right input.
Yeah. And that's what's exciting that's happening now in science is we're actually getting there. Like the old paradigm's dying. And in the longevity space I've been working in, and when I wrote about it in Young Forever, where the scientists are now talking about what's underlying all these diseases, these 155,000 diseases, that's not what we need to be thinking about. It's these 10 underlying problems that tend to go wrong as we get older that can explain all disease. And if we treat those, we may not be able to just extend our life by 5 years by getting rid of cancer or heart disease, but by 30 or 40 years. That means living to be 120 and being in good shape. Like, I don't want to live to be 120 in a nursing home in a wheelchair. I want to be able to ride my bike, go for a horseback ride, make love. You know, that's what I want to do when I'm 100 or 120.
Wow. I'm glad that you said that, because oftentimes I hear the word longevity and I had that reaction like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to be rotting away in a nursing home at
Exactly.
like
Well,
125. That sounds terrible.
It's terrible because most of what we see, Mel, in the world is abnormal aging. And we think that's normal. Oh, it's normal to become frail and decrepit and not be able to do what you want and lose function. And the truth is that most of us, our health span doesn't equal our lifespan. The last 20 years of our life.
What's the difference between health span and lifespan?
Well, health span is how many years you're healthy and can do what you want. And lifespan is how many years you're alive. So if you're fine until you're 60, then you get dementia and you're nursing home for 20 years. That's not good. So
Yes.
that's what you want to do is make your health span equal your lifespan. So on my last day, I want to go for a hike with my beloved. I want to come home, make a delicious dinner. I want to have a bottle of wine, probably a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and
Wait a minute.
make
That
love.
wasn't on the diet.
Who cares? I'm 120. And then I make love and I close my eyes and drift off. And maybe take a jump in the pond.
That sounds incredible. You know, my mother-in-law is 85 years old. She jumps out of airplanes. She walks 5 miles a day.
There you go.
She's having the time of her life. When Chris and I went alcohol free for a bit, she's like, I'm not doing that. Like I have my 1 glass of red wine a day. That's what I need. She plays cards. She prioritizes friends.
Yeah, exactly.
She is the definition of vitality at that age.
Yeah.
And she's like the Energizer Bunny. I can't imagine her running out of steam. And that's what I think you're talking about when it comes to vitality. So what are some of the practices? Because you're a little bit further ahead on the road. Like you represent what I refer to often on this podcast as you're a light on the path for me.
Okay.
So what are some of the
I would
practices
agree.
that you have
Yeah. So I think
to
number
put down
one,
the sword?
b-
How do you
put-
recognize what your version of the sword is?
I think number one, just recognizing that there is a sword and that
Okay.
it's not, and it can be put down. Just like what you're saying right now. Pat yourself on the back, and I'm not kidding. Like, do it right now. Pat yourself on the back for knowing that this is a
Pat on the back.
good development for you. And even if you walk away from it for like 3 months, 3 years, at least, this knowing is the start of something really awesome in your life. So number one.
Have you named yours? Because I've named mine the Campaign of Misery.
Oh, I love that. I might adopt that. No, I didn't name that, but the Campaign of Misery sums it up pretty nicely. It totally is. The one thing I started doing, journaling was a very big part of my practice. I would journal every day about this. Then I would for a very long time. Then I would burn it. I would literally put it outside in a Pyrex bowl and burn it. And then I would watch it burn. It didn't take that long.
Every day?
Every day. I have
So you would
pictures
wake
on my
up-
phone. I would take a picture of
We
the burning
have to
flame
put-
every
Wow.
day.
We have to first of all, we're going to put this card in the description in the
Yeah.
show notes. So will you
I-
walk us through this?
I would burn it. So I would do my morning pages, 3 pages of, morning pages is just supposed to be 3 pages of your stream of consciousness, but I would purposely think about this tribal thinking and just write everything that I hated about it, everything I loved about it, like everything that was happening in my life. For 3 pages, I would write about it. I would crumple it up or rip it or whatever. I would put it in this Pyrex bowl so I didn't explode it, and I would put it outside.
So
no
would you
matter the
walk
weather.
out
Yep.
to your front porch, or were you on the
Yep.
back deck?
back deck?
Okay.
Yep, and just put it out there, and
Why am
I
getting
would
emotional at this.
I
Keep
would
going.
burn it, and I would close the sliding glass door, and I would watch it burn.
From the inside,
inside.
safety. You're
Yeah,
like,
Wow.
from the inside
"Fuck-ah."
safety. Sometimes the wind would take it, and I would be like, "Good,
See ya.
goodbye." Every molecule of that paper that burned was one breath of that old language leaving me.
Wow.
And so what I would do next was the most powerful thing for me. I would go to the sink and I would wash my hands up to my elbows every day. And that act of
Why?
cleansing myself from whatever I didn't want that just came out of me. I just,
Wow.
You know the image I just got?
what?
So my dad's an orthopedic surgeon.
Yes.
And I think about the way in which a doctor washes their hands
Yeah.
before and after surgery.
Yeah.
And I just got this image of my dad washing his hands all the way up to the elbows.
Yeah.
And the ceremonial
Absolutely.
and scientific nature of cleansing like that.
Yes.
And then it had this direct reference for me, since he's a surgeon, of the sword
Yes.
and surgery,
yeah.
and actually deliberately
Wow.
doing surgery to extract at a subconscious level
Yes.
this emotional language, this campaign of misery.
That was my intention, to
Wow.
extract that and
Wow.
not have that be a part of me. I
I'm going to do this.
love it. I love that I was raised in a family that taught me how to do this. It helps me be so empathetic and compassionate towards other people.
Yeah.
And now I feel like enough.
Yeah.
I am very fluent in it. Thank you very much.
Not
I
anymore.
don't need it anymore.
Not anymore.
You know? And then another thing.
Can
that
I
you-
just ask
yeah.
one more question? Because
Yeah.
I know, I think that for those of us that don't have a practice of writing 3 pages,
Yeah.
can we freestyle and come up with a prompt? Because I do think having everybody that wants to try this call this the campaign of misery.
Yeah.
So I liked that you said what you love about it, what you don't like about it. So can we just kind of think up a prompt? So as I go to do this tomorrow morning,
I got a great prompt for you.
give me the prompt. What is the
This is
prompt?
what I write on the
Okay,
top of
I'm gonna
every
write.
page every morning.
Okay.
This will change your life. How can this be easy?
How can this be easy?
I write that on the top.
Jesus, I don't. Well,
Question
I'm
mark,
like,
I don't even
I'm
know
like,
what
what
mark.
is this?
Yes.
What questions do you have? I'm like this.
Yes.
What is this? Is that my
Everything,
day?
you
Is that
guys, everything?
wow?
Because with the sword and the subconscious language that where everything is hard, is so hard. We make our lives so hard. You wake up, you have joy. Oh, let's not do that. Let's not do that emotion. Let's make it hard.
What is coming up for you? Because Jessie
Yeah.
is with her gorgeous blue eyes.
Yeah.
What is coming up?
You're right.
Make it hard.
Everything is so hard.
How do
has
you
to be.
How do you make your give us an example of how you made your life hard already today? Where were the disgusting thoughts? The campaign of misery. How did you pick up the sword against yourself or Jim?
as soon as
or,
I get in the mirror, like
what do you do?
days. That's
Yeah.
you look like shit. Good luck today. Like, not even good luck. Just
Yeah. Right.
Really?
oh yeah.
What else did you say to yourself?
I get obviously super stressed and emotional with holidays. Because of my family's never really cared about them. And I'm trying to change that. So that's also like, how can I create my own language for my holiday? In my new house with my new husband, like all these things that I can start fresh. How do I do that with nothing, like from scratch? What does that even mean? What does it look like? Jim asked me that too. Like, what does it look like to have a tradition? What tradition? We can do it. Name it. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have.
I've been.
I don't have
there too.
any.
Yeah.
Is it like a certain dish? Is it a certain wreath that we
That
hang?
makes it
Is
hard.
it?
Mm-hmm.
How could it be easy? I just got what this
Yeah.
means.
And it goes back to like, it's a campaign of misery, but mine comes from like a victimhood, if that's even a word.
I
But
know.
that's
of course.
that's a big
Of
campaign.
course.
my,
Yes.
my second language that I've been nurtured in,
Yeah.
bathed in, of like, oh, you're a victim. You're a victim, victim, victim.
Yeah.
Not me, but that's what I will be like, oh yeah, Mom, you are a victim. Yeah, of course. You're the only one. So that is kind of under the umbrella of the campaign of misery. But you're right. Everything can be easy. And
That is our natural
I've never
state, you
thought of it
guys.
that way because it's always like, oh God, I have to do this, 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 this.
No,
Make
you
sure that
don't.
gets done. No, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
It's so funny that we're talking
What
about
did you
this.
get? What did you get, Mel? What are you getting?
Well, Jesus, I was yesterday running around like a freaking lunatic.
It's the day before Thanksgiving.
yeah.
So
And
it's lunatic season. Yeah.
because we're in a new house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. Like, what are my traditions?
Oh,
What are
yeah,
this?
I'm
What
the
are...
same.
And
Yeah.
you know,
I'm in
we
a new
had
house.
plenty growing up. I
Yeah.
just like, well, what are mine?
Yeah.
Right.
And so then I'm like buying, fake, faux, whatever the hell, like
Yeah.
things that go across your fireplace. And then
Yeah.
I'm like buying the little white trees that light up. And I'm like,
Yes.
do I even like these? I
Yes.
put them
Yes.
up on the thing and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
And then it's just garbage. Yeah.
Yes, I'm like, why? And then I'm sitting there today, and I'm like, we need a wreath. We need a big wreath.
Yeah.
The big wreath thing. It's got to.
Yeah.
So the tradition
how
is
can it
stress
be
and worry and
getting it right?
not enough,
Yes.
and never be satisfied.
Yes.
That's an awesome tradition.
And
But
I've already-
I invite you to just bake cookies instead. Yeah, I know. Hey, listen, I'm not saying like
and here's what's interesting,
Yeah.
everybody. I want to keep coming back to these two languages because the language that might have been spoken was joyous and happy and all this other stuff, whereas emotionally,
yes,
the language was, this is hard.
the emotional language.
Everything
is what I'm
has to be
talking about.
perfect.
Everything
Yes.
was always hard.
This is stressful.
Yes.
way too
Families
hard.
are a pain in the ass.
Right.
You deal with yours, I'll deal with, like,
Yep.
just,
Holidays are women
Da, 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 da,
killers.
da, da.
Like,
Holiday-
setting you up for success all day long
Yeah.
with that statement and all the other ones too. Like,
how can this be easy?
How can this be
But I don't have an
easy?
answer.
Yeah, but
That's
what if your
okay.
answer is it can't?
Listen, it's not about answering that question. It's about training your subconscious mind to look for a different answer to a different question. When you are working on the subconscious level, you have to have a different thought. You have to introduce a different thought into your being. That's why you like oracle cards. That's why people like
Guided meditation,
Yes.
people like prayer,
right.
people like devotionals, because it introduces a different thought.
A different thought. And so
Interesting.
when you are working on this level and you're realizing this is ingrained in me, this is not just a quick fix. I can't go to a seminar, or I've been to a bunch of workshops. Is the 33rd workshop going to be the answer? I don't know.
No, because you
No.
sit and listen
Yeah.
and you have an epiphany,
Yeah.
but you don't do the work to encode.
Right.
You don't do
Yeah.
the surgery to cut out
You
this
don't
shit.
exactly,
And
and you
put
don't
in
have to
something
burn
else.
it on your deck every
I
day.
want to burn it on my
but
deck.
the thing is, when you write this, I have written this on the top of my journal for 5 years, maybe.
Is that when you started doing
you
this?
want to know
whole-
funny?
Yeah.
The campaign of misery inside me is already coming up going, I don't like the question.
Of course you don't.
Yeah,
And
maybe we
that's
should go, how can today be easy?
and
Maybe I should write,
Of
no, it's got to be
course.
spot the campaign of misery. Make this little.
And I look
Yes.
at that and I'm like, that's hard to fill up 3 pages. I don't know if I can do it.
It's gonna,
You know what we're
it's
gonna do?
Super easy.
I think we should ask Jessie
Yeah.
to just silently write it. And then when she's done, we're going to burn it. And we're
Yeah.
going to see
See
how
how
it
it
feels.
feels.
Ooh.
Are you down?
I'm so
I'm
happy
so
for
down
you
if
you
you're
take on
okay
this
if I just
challenge.
Yes,
have
and
some
I've got a
crocodile
Pirate's dish.
tears.
Good.
It doesn't have any of the holiday shit in it yet because, you know what? I've made it hard. I haven't started yet. All right, so here's what we're going to do.
Let's
I'm
do
going to give
that.
Jessie a notebook.
Okay.
And I
Right,
have
here's
another
a
question about this prompt too.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, she don't like it either.
No.
Well, it's stressing me out because
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, do I just need to make like a to-do list of like, if I have to do this, how can I make it? I still have to do this, a to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
But do you just shorten the to-do list instead of like 10 things, combine it into 3? Or is it,
It's so funny. I
Right.
sit here and I'm like,
I'm just
you're making
analyzing. Yeah.
Right.
it hard. Go ahead, coach her,
but,
Amy.
but you do the same.
And
Okay.
am I focusing this around Thanksgiving? What is, I still don't know what this is. Do we make it, is it like work? Is it personal? Is it
Yeah.
today being Wednesday? Is it just
Right.
focus on the weather? I don't know.
I get that. It seems very overwhelming when you look at this because this is very confronting because it's not how we were raised. It is not our natural language. How can this be easy? That is a very difficult question. And if it is, it's time to dig in. Here's what I will tell you. How can this be easy? Notice how your mind searches for this is wrong. I can't do this. I won't do this well enough. I don't have the right resources, the instructions, all of that.
Yes.
Notice how your mind is searching for that.
Yes.
That's it. Just notice that. You can write 3 pages of Amy's a complete jackass. She has no idea what she's talking about. I don't know what, like, write all of that. That is what I invite you to write. That stream of consciousness is really helpful. It still gets your mind thinking about how this can be easy. Part of the morning pages ritual is to get out all the crap, right? You've got like a golden Buddha underneath, like, you know, a foot of hardened shit on the outside. So we're getting through that hardened shit and getting to the golden Buddha. The hardened shit is what you're writing on the page. So
Or the golden Buddha, right?
or the golden Buddha. It could be. I find more golden Buddha nowadays after doing this practice for however long I've been doing it. But it's okay to get the shit on the page. It's okay to not get it right. It's okay to not understand it. It's okay to just be in that in between. But your courage and your bravery to be in the in between gets you closer to creating a new language for yourself. A love language, a language of acceptance. I mean, a language of possibility, a language of inspiration. That is all what I was searching for when I was doing this. And I will tell you, it has brought me there.
Yeah.
And there is even more. There is no finish line here. It's like just this glorious marathon where everybody's high-fiving you all day long. You know what I mean? Like, it's just fantastic. It will bring you there, but you have to be willing to stay in that space of, this isn't going to work. I don't know if this is going to work, because that will keep you grounded, at least in the possibility that it might work.
Yeah. And I think it's overwhelming. The more I just listen to it, the more I'm like, actually, you're going to fill that shit up real fast.
You will fill that shit up.
It's scary though, of like what could come out.
It's totally scary. And that's why you burn it.
Yeah.
That's why you're like, you know what? I'm glad I don't have
keep
those.
that down there. That's what my sword is laying on top of. We don't touch it.
Yep.
And
yep.
No one looks at that,
Nobody can look
go
at that
direction.
And that's okay. And nobody will. And that's fine. You're doing this for you.
I love this.
You're doing
All
this
right.
for you.
Well, we're going to go to a break.
Yeah.
And Jesse's going to write her 3 pages.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back and we're going to burn this motherfucker.
All right.
Let's do it.
The most important relationship that you have in life, and that's the relationship you have with yourself. I am going to introduce you to a habit that I want you to practice immediately. It is a habit that is based on profound research, and it is a habit that will help you improve the relationship you have with yourself. It will impact your happiness, your sense of control, your confidence. This is the Mac Daddy of all habits. You master this habit, you improve the relationship you have with yourself, and this is like the first domino. You know how in dominoes, when you line them up, there's that one domino that, boom, you knock that sucker over and woohoo, I can't even, all the other dominoes fall. So we are talking about the gateway to creating a positive ripple effect in your life and improving the relationship with yourself. And also, it is the secret, this habit, to self-acceptance and self-love. We know we should love ourselves. We should be kind to ourselves. We should accept ourselves. But nobody knows how to do it. And that's what this entire episode is about. I am going to boil the how down to one extraordinarily simple habit backed by a crazy amount of research that we will link to, and my own research study involving 175,000 people from 91 countries who tried this habit for 5 days in a row. So that means we've got data points that stack up to 175,000 times 5. I don't even know what that number is, but it's pretty big. This works. It's high-fiving yourself every morning in the mirror as part of your morning routine. That's it. And I've got the research to prove it. I've got studies to prove it. And what we have found based on our research is that it takes less than 5 days for you to have an absolutely profound breakthrough in your relationship to yourself by simply adding a high five in the mirror once a morning to your morning routine after you brush your teeth. And at the end of this episode, I want you to stick around because you are going to hear one of the most profound testimonials ever about the impact that one high five made on a woman's life named Chris. Like, you're going to need to bring the Kleenex because this is so goosebump, empowering, and encouraging and exciting. I'm not kidding. This is profound, profound, profound. And I know that you struggle with self-love because none of us know how to do it. I get questions on this every single freaking day. How do I love myself? I know I need to love myself, Mel, like this one from Maria.
Hi, Mel. This is Maria from Spain. Can you explain how to learn to love yourself? I know I need to love myself as a part of my self-growth, but no one tells you how to do that. I'm curious, is there something I can do about that?
I love this question because she's right. We all know we need to love ourselves, but how the hell do you do that when nobody has taught you how? I think the main reason why this concept of self-love is so hard to implement in our lives is because of the definition of love. If you look in the dictionary, love is defined as a feeling, but that's not what it is. Love is an action. And let's just take an example from your life. When you feel loved by somebody else, it's because of how they treat you. It's because of what they say to you. Like, for example, when Chris brings me a cup of coffee in the morning, I feel loved because of that action. When he says, I love you, Mel, I feel loved because of the action of speaking those words. But when it comes to loving ourselves, we're sitting around waiting for the feeling, and yet we're not recognizing the truth about love. You feel loved by other people when they demonstrate it through actions. The secret to self-love is demonstrating to yourself through your own actions toward yourself that you love yourself. And that's why the simple solution to having a breakthrough in loving yourself, the first domino that needs to fall, is something that I call the high five habit. This is a simple habit that I created that boiled down is simply adding a high five in the mirror to yourself, to your morning routine. That's what the high five habit is. Now, one of the reasons why I love this habit is because it has so much research. And the habit's very simple. When you wake up tomorrow morning, get yourself out of bed, go into the bathroom, brush your teeth, and then after you brush your teeth, you're going to put your toothbrush down. And the reason why I want you to do it after you brush your teeth is because I want to use some science called habit stacking. I want this to be part of your morning routine, what you're about to do. And so I want you to do it right after something that you do every morning, brushing your teeth. That way your brain will encode this high five habit even faster. And here comes the most important part. As you put the toothbrush down, you are going to look in the mirror. This is the hardest part of the high five habit. You're going to look in the mirror, and I don't want you to look through the person in the mirror. I want you to realize there's a human being that's standing in the mirror there with you every morning in the bathroom, and you have either ignored them or you have looked at all of the things you don't like about that person, whether it's the weight that you've put on or it's the bags under your eyes, or for me, it's one boob hanging lower than the other boob. You sit there and judge that person, or based on our research and studies, 50% of men and women cannot or will not look at themselves in the mirror. And the reason is so freaking sad. It's because they don't like the person they've become, or they have so many regrets in life about things that they did or the place that they thought that they would be that they can't and won't look at themselves in the mirror. And if you can't look at yourself in the mirror, let's just stop at that right there, because what do you do with somebody you love? What's the action when you see somebody you love? You look them in the eyes. That gaze, eye to eye, gives you not only dopamine, but the oxytocin that is in your brain. It is powerful. It's an act of love to really make eye contact and hold a gaze with love and compassion behind it. So if you can't do that and you're not doing that, you're every morning demonstrating not love, you're demonstrating rejection and criticism. And so first step of the high five habit, you are going to put your toothbrush down and you're going to look at yourself in the eye. And it's going to feel weird if you don't normally do this. And the next part of this is very simple. Whenever you feel ready, you're going to raise your hand and you're going to high five the person you see in the mirror. Now, one of two things will happen when you do this. And again, I have so much data on this. I know because we've studied what happens. What's going to happen when you go to high five the mirror is you will either laugh out loud, and you'll laugh out loud because it's kind of dorky and funny. That's what I did the first time I high fived myself in the mirror. But you're also laughing because your brain recognizes a high five. And so one of the coolest things about high fiving yourself in the mirror is the science involved. It's called neurobics. You're using research in a field called neurobics, which is when you marry a physical action with a new positive thought you want to create. They've studied this at MIT. They've studied it all over the world. It is the fastest way to create new neural pathways and new thought patterns, to marry physical action like a high five with a new thought. And here's where the high five in the mirror gets really cool. So you're leveraging neurobics, all of this sort of physical activity plus neuroscience. You're also getting the benefit of the release of dopamine. You're also getting the benefit of the fact that your brain and your body knows what a high five is because you've been high-fiving people your whole life, right? You've seen high fives in sports on television. You know exactly what a high five is. A high five is something that you give somebody, a physical action, when you're cheering for them, when you're encouraging them. A high five is something that you give to somebody when you're proud of them. Great shot. Good job on that test. And a high five is also something that you give to another human being whenever they need encouragement. So think about like standing on the side of a road race. You don't cross your arms and scowl at people. You high five people and cheer for them because you're trying to say, I see you. I see that this race is hard. Keep going. You got this. If you're on a sports team and you blow a play when you come to the huddle, a high five from a coach or a teammate says, shake it off. I believe in you. Now get back in the game. And so what's so cool about this high five habit to yourself in the mirror is that a lifetime of positive programming, neurologically already in your brain, gets aimed right back at your reflection. And so you are physically demonstrating with this simple habit in less than 5 seconds every single morning that you, yes, you take actions that show that you believe in, you love, and you encourage the person in the mirror. Now, another reason why I love this habit is you don't have to think anything. All of the wiring that is already in your brain and in your nervous system, it does the work for you silently. As I mentioned, there is so much research, and we're going to just put dozens and dozens and dozens of studies. But I want to also point out that there are 2 studies that are really important. One of them was done with the NBA, and I'm just going to cut to the chase on this study. They wanted to know if there were any habits that winning teams had that the losing teams in the NBA didn't have in the preseason. And it turned out, after crunching all the data, and this has been verified by the Wall Street Journal too, beyond the study that these scientists did, that the top 4 teams in the NBA, in fact, do have a habit in the preseason that the losing teams do not. You want to know what that habit is? You guessed it. They have more high fives, fist bumps, pats on the back in the preseason among team members than any of the other teams. Why? Well, because a high five isn't just an action and a physical gesture that means nothing. A high five actually says, I am with you. It builds trust, it builds partnership, it builds belief, and you can build that back in yourself by adding the high five in the mirror every single morning as part of your morning routine. There was another study done with kids where they made a bunch of kids take these math tests, and these researchers wanted to know what's the best way to encourage someone through a challenging moment. And they found that it wasn't words of encouragement like, hey, you're a great student. It wasn't the growth mindset words like, hey, really admire how hard you're working. You want to know the single best way to motivate kids to do something challenging? It's to say nothing and to give them a high five. This was so profound that the researchers, and we'll link to the study, changed the name of the study to include the surprising power of a high five, the surprising motivational power of a high five. That's how exciting this is. And I think you can hear this because I stumbled onto this by mistake. I started high-fiving myself right after I had gotten fired, basically, from hosting my own talk show. And I needed to give myself like a pick-me-up. And I just instinctually one morning raised my hand and high-fived the mirror. And the immediate effect that I felt of the dopamine in my mind and the boost in my mood and this sense of, okay, I got it. I can do this. I can face this. Having my own back, demonstrating it to myself during a really low moment, it was the beginning, that first domino that fell, of an entirely new relationship with myself. It's what led me to get into intensive therapy and to start getting serious about my happiness. And I think you know, everything comes back to you and the relationship that you have with yourself. And so we're going to go deep on this because the relationship that you have with yourself is the single most important thing in the world. And in addition to sharing this research and this simple habit with you, I want to unpack some of the things that people experience when they do it, because I've had so many questions about this, like this one from Teresa.
How do I stop beating myself up and forgive myself for my past mistakes?
I can't believe how many years you waste beating yourself up for past mistakes. And the reason why we do that is we don't know how to forgive ourselves, because we don't know how to accept ourselves. We don't know how to accept the failures, the regrets, the disappointments. We don't know how to accept, we don't know how to love ourselves through it. And that's where, honest to God, this simple habit of demonstrating it every morning in the mirror as part of your morning routine changes everything. And we got to take a short break for our sponsors, but don't you dare go anywhere, because I have so much to share with you, and I'm going to invite my husband, Chris, to come and join us. Because when I first shared this high five habit thing that I had discovered a couple years ago with him, when I first stumbled into doing it for myself, he thought it was the stupidest thing he had ever heard. And of course, because I'm relentless and annoying, I was like, but you got to do it for 5 days. You got to try it. You got to try. And what happened when he tried it for 5 days was both life-changing, profound, and it was heartbreaking for me to hear as a spouse just how much my husband was struggling, and how the simple assignment of looking yourself in the eyes was impossible for him to do at that time. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.